writing an artist bio is probably the most important thing that you will do as an artist. It's the only thing that survives through time. When your artworks, when your paintings or whatever degrade over time, the story is the only thing left, and it's probably the most important reason why Van Gogh goes to high prices like it does. It's the reason why we will remember Michael Jackson. Not because he was the best singer, he wasn't, but because of the story that is behind it. An artist bio, writing an artist bio, is writing your story, the most unique part, the thing that you are. And the interesting thing about storytelling is that there's only one story that has ever been told. In the last thousands of years and in the next hundreds, thousands of years to come, there's only one story that will be told. And it follows the same structure, all of them. Rocky, Van Gogh, Steve Jobs, all of the stories that are being told are following the same structure. And when I realized this and implemented this in my applications, my grant writing applications, or any proposal that I did, call for artists, whatever, it was the difference between losing and winning. When I changed this in my narrative, in my artist bio, I started winning grants and started winning competitions. It wasn't a change in the art that I was making. It wasn't more followers on Instagram. It was changing that one aspect. And so in this video we will cover how to write an artist bio that connects, that becomes a story that people will talk about. The best artist bio is an artist bio that is being retold by other people. And so first of all, we're going to cover the one storyline structure that exists. So let's grab this one little fellow over here. So this is the story line. This is it. This is how every story is being told as we speak. First we have a beginning. And in that beginning there are two options. There's good fortune and there's bad fortune. Good fortune, for example, Gladiator. The leader of the realm, the leader of the army. He's in the best position ever. And then he dramatically fails all the way here, where he becomes a slave. And then he rises above and kills the emperor. Rocky, bad fortune. He's too old. He can never win the competition anymore. He can never, ever win a boxing match. He's just too old for that. And then he starts training. He's walking the stairs. You know, he's feeling the energy completely. And then in some moment, right before he's there, right before everybody expects him to win, he loses his son. Bam, he goes right back to the gutter, all the way down. And then eventually he conquers and he wins. That's the storyline. A good story has a hero that gets destroyed and becomes the underdog, the ultimate underdog. And from that position, there's anticipation. Will he make it? Will he not make it? What will happen? What like that anticipation, that's where the story starts. And that's also where your artist bio, when you're still living, or your grant application or proposal happens. It's right here. Right after you have already failed, right after you've experienced parts of life, right there, that's where your artist bio happens. And it is through that failure, through that misery that falls upon the hero, that we can connect with that hero, that we can connect with that symbol. And that we are dragged into the story. This is how every story is being told. Steve Jobs will not be remembered because he made the best computer at that time. He will be remembered because of the story. Steve Jobs grows up in a family that is not his original biological parents. They gave him away because they wanted a better future for their kid. That new family saves up money so that he can go to college. In college, he drops out. And he completely fails, has no money whatsoever. He goes back to his parents' house. In that garage, he builds one of the biggest companies that will ever be built. Now, right before, let's check this out. Right before that company goes insane, he gets kicked out of his company, goes all the way down again. He develops a new company next, which will merge with Pixar, and then somehow, miraculously, he becomes again the CEO of Apple and conquers the world for a very brief moment. That's the story. That's what people will remember. It's the same story as Rocky. It's the same pattern, it's the same structure. And so in your artist bio, you want that to be in there. Now, your artist bio is not a finished story. Like it's not completed yet. But what you want is you want the people who read your artist bio to recognize that storyline. Why? Because we have been wired throughout our whole lives for not only our lives, but biologically in our brains, the neurological patterns are wired to recognize that story because it's a story that we have been telling for thousands of years. It's the only story. And so you need to make sure that people who read your artist bio can recognize that story. Angel investors who are investing in startups, I know this sounds strange, but why are we going to angel investors? When they're investing in startups, most of them like to see that the founders already developed other companies that failed. They like that because then they know that how it feels like to fail. It's also a story that we can recognize. First failure, then afterwards success. It's something that people are drawn to. And so a lot of times what artists will do, they will write their artist bio and make it look as perfect as possible. They will give the PR version of themselves, the best version. And this is the mistake that I made. This is the number one mistake that I made. And so now we are going to cover that bad version of my artist bio, or a section in my artist bio, and then the better version out of that. So at first I would write about when I was 15. When I was 15, I developed a festival, a cultural festival, and organized it. And it was a festival with international bands, multiple stages, multiple days. And I wrote that section in my artist bio because I thought it was nice. A 15-year-old that develops a festival, international bands, that's an achievement. It's also where I won my first grant at the age of 15. And so I would write that down in a way that it looked amazing. In a way that it was like blah, 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 blah. And I forgot the failure part. The essential part of a good artist bio, a good story. That was an ideal moment for me to put that failure into my artist bio. Now the new version, or the version that has been going on for the last years, the version that actually works, is slightly different. It's a version where I explain all of that, but I say, but I'm much more honest and much more accepting that failure. And so it sounds something like this. At the age of 15, I developed a cultural festival. I had a dream, a vision of developing a festival with international bands, multiple stages, etc., etc., etc. And a year later, that got realized. The festival was there. International bands, multiple stages, the whole thing. But what I didn't realize back in those days, and what I realize now, is that the only reason why I was doing that was because I wanted to brag. Because I wanted to prove to myself and to others that I was a different 15-year-old kid. That I took more risks, that I pushed a little bit further than the rest. And what I know now is that with that mindset and attitude, you are doomed to fail. And so what happened was, there were not enough people in that festival. And so I learned the hard way that marketing is really important. That festival completely flopped and completely failed. And then out of that, I go to some successes. Now, if you frame it like this, the readers, they know, one, a lot of potential, a lot of desire, a lot of desire to do stuff, and a lot of entrepreneurial vibe, but they also see, hey, wait a minute, there's real failure there. Now, I could go through the whole artist bio, and then you will see this whole narrative storyline with failures, fall downs, and then rises up. You would see that happening, but we don't have enough time for that. But that one aspect, that is the aspect that I changed, and that made all the difference. That made all the difference. Why? Because people can connect with that failure. They understand that. Here's the thing. Most people don't have real successes in life. They cannot connect with that because they don't know that. Most people have more than enough failures in life, and so they can emotionally relate to failures. Why? Because we all have failures all over the place. And so that makes a lot of sense that people can relate with failure. People can, or most people cannot really relate with success. And so this notion of PRing yourself on your artist bio to make it look as perfect as possible is the worst attitude, the worst mindset, because people cannot relate with that. You have to capture this storyline in your artist bio. Now, here's the important part of this whole thing. Collectors, they know this. The high-end collectors in the art market, they know exactly this. They know that the only artists that actually survive time are the artists with a story. It's not the painting, it's not your sculpture, it's not your performance, it's none of that stuff. The only thing that really survives through time is the story. The only reason why Van Gogh will be super expensive for the next decades, centuries, is because of that story, and we recognize the same story there. Van Gogh started painting, drawing when he was 26. That's way too late. Nobody can, it's art. You have to start when you're 5 or something. So that's way too late. And then he didn't sold anything. So that's the rocky version. That's all the way down in the ladder. Climbing your up, working like insanity. He made more than one painting a day. So that's real work ethic, working his way up. And then he starts to get some success. He starts to meet the right people. He's there with Gauguin, stuff like that. He even sells a work. And you kind of feel like, okay, it's coming. But he's a social incapable lunatic and he bites ears off, so nobody wants him. He gets smacked to the ground again. And what happens there? He becomes crazy, goes to a mental institution and dies. Now here's the impossible part of this story. And that's where it becomes so fucking insane. The untellable story, the uncreatable story. When he dies, we're right here. The story is not finished, Like, we're right here all the way down. And then he has to climb up again to become the Van Gogh that we know. Now, here's what happens. A while later, people start to realize, hey, wait a minute. Van Gogh, intuitively, in his painting process, was painting fractal patterns, something that would only be discovered decades later after he painted them. Intuitively, he already grabbed that, and he's the only impressionistic painter who does that. The only impressionistic painter who ever did that. Wait a minute, this guy is a genius. A prophecy, a visionary, and people start to realize, what the fuck, this is just pure genius. Art starts to push everything up, so we are at the anticipation thing, Prices go up. Everybody understands the story. Everybody's excited. What's going to happen next? And boom, it all blows up. And we have the Van Gogh that we have today. The star. Decades after he painted the Starry Night. And so this story goes like if you go to all, seriously, all legends, they all follow the same storyline. All of them. Michael Jackson, the black singer who turned himself into a white guy to conquer the world. Beethoven, at his height, becomes deaf all the way down and then makes those amazing pieces and then rises above again. Like it's the same storyline over and over and over. And so in your artist bio, you have to realize that you need to tell that story unfinished. Why? Because the people who are reading it, they will feel as if they are the hero that will decide what the ending of the story will be. And so you give them the power to make that decision. These patrons, when you're writing grants, when they're visiting your website or whatever, when they're reading that artist bio, they feel like, hey, this is the moment after the failure already happened that he's gonna rise, or he potentially could rise, and I could be part of this. I want to be part of this. And so that's the story that you have to tell. Dig deep inside who you are, what you've experienced as an artist. I hope you've experienced some stuff, otherwise you have a problem. And then tell that story. Don't be afraid to tell that story. It's the only thing that is true to you. Research shows that 65% of all communication in the art world is done through storytelling, gossiping, or whatever. Hey, did you heard artist John, he's now collaborating with this and they're planning to blah, blah, stuff like that. The majority of communication, the majority of marketing in the high-end art world is through storytelling. Storytelling is the number one thing, and it starts with your artist bio. Now here's another fact that we artists know. Your signature is ridiculously important. If John, the random guy, puts a line on a paper, puts a signature underneath, it's worthless. If Van Gogh would do that and you have a paper with the real Van Gogh signature, all of that stuff, it would be a lot of money. Now, what is your signature? It's your story. Your signature is who you are. It's what is true to you. It's your person. It's your story. There's only one you. Your story will determine the price of your signature. And so make sure that you price it correctly in your artist bio, in your project proposal while you're writing grants. Make sure you price it correctly. And collectors know this as well. Collectors know this as well. Now, if you're selling art for €500, fine. It's gonna matter a little bit, but not that much. But the higher you go, the more it starts to matter. Because here's the truth. The most lasting thing, the most conservable thing is your story. Stories about Van Gogh will outlive his paintings. Paintings are limited in time in that sense. Stories are not. They can be retold and retold and retold and retold. We have stories of people from thousands of years ago that are still being retold. Collectors know this. And in the high-end art market, those collectors that want to go for a lasting thing, they will bet on those stories. They will not bet on your art and your skill and all. Yeah, they will also do that. But the thing that they can bet on most, that they're most certain of, is a story. That's the most important one of them all. So make sure you implement this general storyline structure with ups and downs in your artist bio. Okay, I'm editing as we speak, but I wanted to say these things. So yeah, here you have my computer camera rolling. 2 videos that you should watch after watching this one that are completely in line with this one right here is first one is an artist bio for Instagram or any social media platform. In that video we will dive into psychology, some real neuroscience of writing an artist bio, especially when you only have one line, when you only have one or 2 lines. That's a different game than having a full story that will hopefully last for a long time. And the second video is a video on grant writing. where we cover some psychology tricks from Daniel Kahneman and link them to writing an arts bio or grant writing or any application, whatever you do. You will be able to use those things because human psychology never changes. The platforms, Instagram or websites, whatever might change, but the psychology behind it will never change. And so these are some really powerful videos that you should watch after this one. Plus, on top of that, it's also a very funny video because it's one of my oldest videos, and therefore it's yeah, I'm gonna be uncomfortable on that video, like like no presentation skills whatsoever. So that's gonna be cool to watch as well. I'm not saying that I have presentation skills now. I don't have that, but you know, more than I had back then. Thanks for watching and see you around. Ciao, ciao. Thanks. Bye.